Hi guys, it is Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Laughing and I'm here with my weekly wrap up, and I got so much read this week. I had a really good reading week and I can't wait to tell you all about the books that I did read. So the first book I read this week was Silence Under a Stone by Norma MacMaster, and this is a book I received from Penguin Ireland in exchange for an honest review to read during the Irish Readathon. And this is about a book about an older woman called Harriet who is in a kind of nursing home, and she's kind of thinking about her life, and it's in the 80s, and she's thinking about her life like from like the early 20s when she was a young girl and she got married, and the son that she has, and kind of the relationships that kind of start to disintegrate after a while. And she grew up in a Presbyterian community, and her husband was a very staunch Presbyterian, like Protestant believer, and so was her son. And then everything kind of fell apart when her son fell in love with a Catholic girl and kind of steps away from the church, and she reacts in a very, very bad way, and we see her kind of thinking about her reactions and how things could have possibly been better. So this was an okay read for me. I think it was written very well. I just found it very, very hard to connect with any of the characters, and all the characters were quite unlikable as well. Like Harriet is a very, very hard character to like. She is a very stone-faced, tough, hard woman, like anyway, and just some of the decisions that she makes and her reactions were very, very frustrating to read. She wasn't a very forgiving woman or a loving woman, and you can see just like how that it doesn't just affect her but affects her relationships with other people, in particular her son, whose life is affected by the way she treats him, particularly after he falls in love with a Catholic girl and changes his religion slightly and changes his beliefs slightly. I found it very hard even just to connect with Harriet's way of life and the way she grew up and her beliefs, because I myself, like, Ireland is a predominantly Catholic country, as a lot of people know, and I myself grew up in a Catholic community. My father is quite religious, so we went to church, we went to mass, made my communion, my confirmation, was baptised, all in a Catholic church, went to a Catholic school, you know, was very involved with the church for when I was younger, and I don't so much anymore. I'm not so much of a believer anymore, but you know, that is just the world that I'm in. I am used to this Catholic community and the parish and stuff like that. So reading about a Protestant community and a Presbyterian community was just really, really odd for me, and I kept kind of thinking that it just didn't feel like it was set in Ireland for me at some points, except for when they would talk and some of their phrases and stuff like that. But because of that, I think I did feel quite distant, just because I couldn't relate to the way of life so much, even though it was set in Ireland. So as I said, like, it was okay. I thought the writing was very good in it. Like, I think I would definitely read more by Norma MacMaster. The story itself just kind of fell apart for me a little bit, particularly just the main character. She was very unlikable. Even the end of it wasn't really the end I would have liked. I felt very like down about it, like, so yeah, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was okay. Next book I finished was an audiobook that I was reading, and that was Sinner by Maggie Stiefvater. Sinner is the 4th book in the Shiver trilogy. So the Shiver trilogy is about these 2 teenagers called Grace and Sam is a werewolf, and Grace is kind of falling in love with Sam, obviously, and learning about his werewolf life and his werewolf family and stuff like that. And Isabel and Cole are 2 side characters in the Shiver trilogy, and Sinner is kind of this spin-off, is connected to the trilogy, but it's very much a spin-off set a couple of years later after the end of the trilogy, and it's about Isabel and Cole reconnecting and their relationship together. And Isabel and Cole were one of my favourite characters in the Shiver trilogy. I just love the fact both of them are so fragile and so broken in different ways, and they were still very fragile and very broken in this book, but again, they were a little bit grown up, they were a little bit stronger in their fragileness, if you get me. So this is just them coming back together, and we're kind of seeing how both of them have grown in different ways, though not so much, like they're not completely different. They still have a lot of issues to work out and a lot of issues to work out together, but I just loved them. I just love them so much, and I love their relationship. So I just really, really, really enjoyed this book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, some of Isabel's decisions at some points did kind of annoy me. I felt like she was really holding back quite a lot, even though what she wanted was staring at her straight in the face, and she knew what she wanted, but she was just constantly holding herself back and almost sabotaging the relationship at times, just so she could hold on to that mean girl, angry girl kind of reputation that she has, and that did annoy me a little bit. I was like, come on Isabel, just stop. But yeah, but the 2 characters kind of feel like, you know, you kind of can just like touch them and they'll just crumble apart in like like shards of glass. Like that's how they feel all the time, but I love that about them. You never quite know if what way they're going to go, if they're going to just grow stronger or if they're just going to crumble and crumble spectacularly together. Like but yeah, I really enjoy this. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. If you do like the Shiver trilogy like I do, I love the Shiver trilogy, but if you do like the Shiver trilogy, I would say definitely give it a go. I did really enjoy it on audiobook as well. The next book I read was Half Irish by Peter J.S. Waugh. I actually don't know how to say his name, but this is about a young boy called Tyler. He's 18 years old and he is born of a Irish mother and an Italian father, and he's grown up in New York. And when he is just about he's 18, and when his parents tell him that they're going to send him to Ireland for 3 weeks during his summer before he goes to college, to visit his family over there and spend time with his older cousin, who he gets on with really, really well. And they're saying to him that he has to pay his own way, he has to get a job and pay his own way for his own flights and stuff, and for spending money and stuff over there. So he goes to do that, which I really enjoy, because I thought this was going to start off like when he gets to Ireland, but it's actually the first 100 pages is him in New York and us learning about his life in New York before he goes to Ireland and experiences Ireland and spends a lot of time with his Irish family. So I did really enjoy that scene, how he went about getting a job, just how honest he is. Like he's a really honest, nice character. Like he's so earnest. Like this character, there's nothing bad about him. He loves his family, he loves his friends, he's just a really, really nice guy, and I feel like he's very much a typical teenager, because like not every teenager has these major life problems going on. Some of them just do. They just enjoy school, they enjoy being with their friends, they enjoy spending time with their family, they enjoy their other pursuits, and this is what Tyler is. I thought this was going to be a 4-star book for most of it, and then after about halfway through I kind of just started feeling a bit tired of it. I think it was just a little bit too long. This is about 413 pages. I think it could have been about 350, maybe even less. Because after a while it just kind of starts getting a little bit boring. For me, it got a little bit boring and a little bit tiring. As I said, I did really like Tyler. He was just such a nice character. But he did actually, like, this book did suffer from that typical adult tries to write a teenager kind of thing, where, like, first of all, he used text speech a lot, especially when he met this girl in Ireland and fell in love for the first time, and they were using text speech to each other, and the girl was 19 and Tyler was 18. But I don't think people use text speech anymore really, and for an 18 and 19 year old to use it, I was like, no, that wouldn't happen. And then he actually, like, I swear to God, he said LOL out loud. Like, when he was talking to people, he would say LOL, and I was like, no one does that. No one ever says LOL in real life. And at one point he actually said ROFL. And I was just like, I actually died a little bit inside. I was like, no way, like, teenagers do not do this. Like, I don't know anyone who would actually say that out loud unless they wanted to slap, like. So yeah, that was just really, like, it was funny, but I was just like, here, like, but yeah, like, it's an okay book. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars in the end. As I said, it was almost going to be a 4, but it just needed to be that little bit shorter. There was a really good point in this where his cousin suffers a little bit from mental health and depression, and there is talk about that, and the talk about how men find it very hard to kind of actually acknowledge their emotions and acknowledge that they could be a little bit depressed, and they try and hide it behind that, like, you know, that lad exterior. And I did enjoy that, but there wasn't any talk about his cousin going to see, like, a therapist or talking to someone professionally about his feelings. So I would have liked that as well, but I did like that it was there that men do find it harder to express their emotions and to talk about their emotions, because I think that was really, really important. The next book I read in one day, and that was Almost Loved by Louise O'Neill, which I adored this book. So this is obviously Louise O'Neill's latest book. I was able to meet her on Saturday, and I got it signed, which was super cool. This is about a girl called Sarah who is in her early 20s. She's about 24 years old, and she ends up getting into a relationship with this much older man who's in his 40s, and it's very much this very strange, like, I wouldn't say she loves him, she just seems to love the way he desires her, but he doesn't treat her right either. He just uses her for her body. He, like, never seems to care about her feelings or her desires. And we just see how that relationship has affected her, because we see her at 24 years old and we see her again a couple of years later in a new relationship, and we see how her experience with the older man called Matthew is affecting her current relationship with a young guy called Oisin, who's the same age as her. And yeah, so I did really enjoy this. It's very typical Louise O'Neill writing, where, like, you're not expecting a happy ending at all. I would say this is actually probably the happiest ending out of all of her other books. Not as not as open-ended as the others have been, but again not particularly a happy ending either. Just some of the writing in this was really powerful as always. Now I haven't been in a relationship quite like the way Sarah was with Matthew, but I did definitely get that sense of, I did relate to that sense of kind of losing yourself in a relationship and, you know, kind of becoming all about that other person in the relationship and just caring only about what they think and how they feel and kind of forgetting about your own feelings and your own emotions and that kind of thing. So I did really relate to that, and I think a lot of people will relate to Sarah's relationship with Matthew and then her struggles with her relationship with Oisín. Which again, I will also say I love that Louise O'Neill uses so many Irish names in her books. Now Sarah obviously is not an Irish name, but all the side characters, most of them have like really great Irish names, like Aisling and Fionn and Oisín and Afric and stuff like that, which I loved. I just love seeing that Irish representation there as well. But yeah, this is a fantastic book, one that you can fly through. As I said, I read this in like one day and I didn't even have like that much reading time. I just was able to fly through it. I just couldn't put it down. So I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend people pick it up. The next book I finished finally was Who's Feckin' Who in Irish History by Colin Murphy, and I said this is just a quick funny little like book about all these different Irish people in history. This was actually full of humour. I really enjoyed the humour in this. It definitely had me laughing a few times. I would have liked a lot more women. I mean, there is like 3 pages of names at the front of this and like only 8 of them are women, so I would have liked more, but again I did really enjoy this. It was a pleasant surprise at how much I enjoyed it. Lots of great Irish humour in it, and I think it's one for Irish people and for people who just want to know more about Irish history but not want to go like delve really deep and like really factual stuff, like just stuff that you can learn a little bit but also have a laugh with. This is definitely one of those kind of books, so I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book I read was The Earlie King and the Kid in Yellow by Danny Denton, which I received from Granta Books in exchange for an honest review. And this is a really interesting book. This is about an Ireland that is besieged with rain. It like never stops raining. Some of like the country we know now, a lot of stuff has fallen apart. Like there's no farming anymore. There's a lot of like starvation and sickness and stuff like that. And we're learning about this kind of gang that seems to be mostly based in Dublin, and it's led by this guy called the Earlie King, who people seem to think is almost like immortal, and he's this really dangerous guy, and the Earlie boys are really dangerous people. And we're learning about this young guy. He's only about 13 years old and he's known as the Kid in Yellow, and he basically got into a relationship with the Earlie King's daughter, and the daughter died giving birth to the child, and now the Kid in Yellow wants to take away his child from her dad because he was a dangerous man. And so the Kid in Yellow has to go and try and save his child from the Earlie King, and it kind of sets off this kind of weird kind of, not a gang war, but you just see him kind of taking the child and making a run for it basically, and you're getting the story from all these different kind of points of view. You're kind of seeing the kid's point of view, you're seeing the point of view of the guard, of one of the guards, like the policemen who was trying to figure out what is going on in this, like in the gang. We're seeing the point of view of a journalist who is kind of, he's recording everything that the Earlie boys are doing, and then we're also getting these like weird points where it's almost like things are written down in like play form, and like it's almost as if the story's been told years from now. This is almost like a legend years from now, that this thing between the Earlie King and the Kid in Yellow, and we're seeing how a play was made about them. Like this is such a weird story to explain. I don't even know if I know how to explain it, but I did really enjoy it. It's different from anything I've ever read before. And yeah, I just definitely got sucked into it. It's definitely an easy one to read as well. You can definitely fly through it. I read most of it yesterday. I just really like the design of it as well. Like some of these chapters, as you can see, it's like designed as if there's rain falling down the chapters, which I love. I feel like actually weirdly this would actually be a really interesting stage adaptation. I think this would actually look really cool as like a modern play on stage. So I would definitely, if this was like adapted into a screenplay or like as a play, I would definitely like read that, and I would definitely see it, because I think it would be a really interesting thing to do. So yeah, I don't really know how to explain it, just to say that I would definitely, if it seems to appeal to you, to give it a chance. It is a different kind of book, but it is a very interesting one and a very addictive one, and it's a very different kind of Ireland from the one we have today, but at the same time it's not that much. And again, with the whole kind of gang thing and how dangerous and violent it is, I would actually recommend this for people who might like something like the Peaky Blinders. Like, I don't know why, but the gang kept reminding me of the Peaky Blinders, and when I was reading this I kept wanting to like watch the Peaky Blinders on Netflix, which I still haven't finished. So yeah, there was just something about that kind of like gang life, I guess, in a way. Yeah, so I did really enjoy this. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I would actually quite recommend it for people because it is as I said, it's a different kind of book, but a good one, and a good one I think it's worth giving a chance to. So yeah, that's everything I read this week. Please let me know what you guys think. I would love to know, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye!